The FPL community currently have one big problem. Bar Erling Haaland and Victor Gyökeres, no one really knows who to pick as a third forward options, which is why I've decided to create a bracket tournament with 8 strikers that the FPL community are thinking about buying. And the first battle that we have is João Pedro versus Benjamin Sesko. And I'll be honest, we know João Pedro is going to win this. João Pedro is going to go through to the next round. But there's one thing I want to show you guys, and that is how good Benjamin Sesko's underlying numbers actually are. First thing that is key to remember is Sesko hasn't played a lot of football, so his numbers might be slightly inflated when we're looking at per 90 stats. But so far, Sesko has a higher XG than João Pedro at 0.5. He's averaging more goals per 90. Of course, Sesko's got 2 goals for United. He's averaging more shots than João Pedro. And remember, this has been a big criticism we have of João Pedro. Over the last 3 games, João Pedro's only had 1 shot. Sesko's also averaging more touches in the penalty area. So, we are sending João Pedro through to the next round. But I just want you guys to remember that Sesko's underlying numbers, if this continues, he will be a very good option for FPL in the future. Now, let's have a look at our next matchup. Ollie Watkins and Mateta. And I'll be honest, there can only be one winner, and that's whoever's playing Ollie Watkins. Because Ollie Watkins has had a shocking start to the season. And Aston Villa have had a shocking start as well. And it doesn't get any easier. Their next 4 games include Tottenham away, vastly improved on Thomas Frank defensively. After that, they go play Manchester City, Liverpool, Bournemouth. Those are very, very tough games. Of course, some of you might argue those games Ollie Watkins might be able to stretch the defence in behind. Those games we've seen Ollie Watkins in the past do well. But I'll be honest, I'm not that guy, and I'm going to put Mateta through to the next round. Now, the next matchup is Jarrod Bowen versus Evanilson. And I'll be honest, I think this is another simple one. Jarrod Bowen will be going through to the next round. One thing I would say though, Evanilson clearly does play for a better side, and we know the level that Evanilson can reach. So far, he's only got 1 goal this year, and I'll be honest, when you're watching Bournemouth, the main talisman of that side is clearly Semenyo, which is why I don't really see the need to bring in Evanilson. Jarrod Bowen is clearly the better option. Now, the next matchup is very, very tough. Woltemade versus Alexander Isak. I'll be honest, I need some help, so let's have a look at the data. Now, the data is supporting the Newcastle man. Of course, it is important to remember Alexander Isak hasn't had that many minutes, which is why his data might be a bit skewed compared to what we've seen in previous years. But Woltemade is averaging more XG than Alexander Isak. He's averaging slightly more shots, but Alexander Isak is averaging slightly more touches in the penalty area. But one thing I would say is, I don't think this is a complete one-side. Woltemade is completely the better option. We know how explosive Alexander Isak has been in the past in FPL and his ability as a player. He's clearly the more talented player. And we know Liverpool's next 3 fixtures are not too bad. They have Manchester United at home next, a great fixture. Then they have Brentford away and Aston Villa at home in the next 3. If you time this right with Alexander Isak, we know he could go big. And another thing that is important to remember is that between Gameweek 8 and Gameweek 9, Liverpool have a Champions League game against Frankfurt, Ekitike's former club. So you expect him to play that, which should mean Isak starts the Brentford away game. That is not a bad option. But I think right now, you probably still lean towards the Newcastle man in Woltemade. But this will be very close. And I think if you go Isak on your Gameweek 8 wildcard, you're brave, and I'm not going to say that's a bad option. Now, this is where it gets tough. The semi-final stage. And our first matchup is João Pedro versus Mateta. Again, let's have a look at the data. I think at this semi-final stage as well, by the way, I don't think there are any right or wrong answers. Any of these 4 players in the semi-finals could outscore one another, and I think this matchup is no different. If we're looking at the data so far, Mateta's XG is extremely, extremely high at 0.51. If you guys don't know, Crystal Palace have created the highest amount of expected goals out of any single side in the Premier League, which is crazy. Goals haven't really been there for Mateta at 0.27. We know Mateta has the ability to do a lot better. Shots, Mateta's coming out on top, 2.2 in comparison to 1.24 for João Pedro. Touches in the penalty area, again, very, very similar, 2.48 in comparison to Mateta's 2.2. The only thing that I think will lean with João Pedro is João Pedro's fixtures are probably better over the next couple. Mateta's fixtures are very, very difficult, especially game week 10. Crystal Palace have Arsenal away, which is a very, very tough fixture. But after that, Crystal Palace do go on a nice run. But I think for now, I'm probably going to lean towards the Chelsea man slightly. But again, Mateta is a phenomenal option if you're looking to bring in a striker. Now, I think we have the hardest matchup. Jarrod Bowen versus Woltemade. And I know some of you lot are probably looking to bring in both of these 2 into your sides. But if you could only choose one, who would it be? Let's have a look at some data to help, because I'll be honest, I am struggling with this option. Now, the underlying numbers don't actually look that good for Jarrod Bowen. His XG is considerably lower than Walterman's at 0.16 in comparison to Walterman at 0.6. He's averaging less goals. His shots are pretty much identical, and he's also averaging less touches in the penalty area. But one thing we do know with Nuno is that he's so good at creating these talisman. He done it last year with Chris Wood. Jarrod Bowen's obviously a better player, let's say. And plus, one thing we know is with Bowen, he's Mr. West Ham. No matter what happens, no matter how bad West Ham are, Jarrod Bowen will always get between 10 to 15 league goals. And you know what? Timing this could be perfect, because Jarrod Bowen and West Ham's fixtures over the next couple are very, very nice. They play Brentford at home next. Again, a very, very good home fixture. Then they go to Leeds away. Another fixture that you can say is quite favourable for West Ham, even though I think Leeds have been quite good this year. Then the hardest fixture at the next three, and that is Newcastle at home. But after that, they play Burnley at home as well. So 3 home fixtures in the next 4. I feel like this could go either way. You might want to pick Walterman, you might want to pick Bowen. Also, one thing that I would say that goes into this is that Walterman could potentially get some rotation with obviously Champions League. He's not going to play 90 minutes in all, let's say, the next 4 games before the international break will whistle out. There's obviously going to be moments where maybe Anthony Gordon plays up front. Harvey Barnes can obviously do that role as well. And obviously they have Osulu on the bench who might take some minutes away from Walterman. Jarrod Bowen, we know, is pretty much going to be a 90-minute man for Nuno. I'm going to lean towards Jarrod Bowen, but just slightly, as their better option and a better forward to buy. Now, we've reached the final, and it's João Pedro versus Jarrod Bowen to decide who is the best forward to buy and to crown the winner. But before we decide who the best player to buy is, make sure you guys like the video and subscribe to the channel, and let me know your thoughts on this concept of a video. I don't think I've ever seen anyone do, let's say, a bracket tournament like this for FPL. So let me know if you think this works, or if you don't think it works, how we could improve this concept. But let's get back into it. João Pedro or Jarrod Bowen? Let's have a look at some of the data. Now, the data, you could argue, is very, very mixed. João Pedro comes out on some variables, Bowen comes out the others, which you could argue doesn't really help. But João Pedro's XG is higher than Jarrod Bowen's. However, Jarrod Bowen, as we know, is averaging more goals. Shots, Bowen comes out on top. Touches in the penalty area, Bowen comes out on top. And points per match, João Pedro comes out on top. Because obviously, remember, João Pedro rates very, very well with the bonus point system. But who would I pick? I'll be honest, if I could only pick one of these two, I think I would slightly lean towards João Pedro. Just because I think his minutes over the next couple games look very, very secure. We know he's suspended in the Champions League because after he picked up his red card, which is very, very useful from an FPL point of view, I should say. Plus, another bonus is João Pedro obviously didn't travel with Brazil during the international break because he's recovering from a small niggle that has been causing him some problems for Chelsea over the last couple of games. And we know over the last couple of games, João Pedro has looked off it. So, João Pedro, a rest for 2 weeks, coming back to a better side than, let's say, Jarrod Bowen is. We know the potential João Pedro has in terms of getting goals, assists, plus potentially being on penalties, even though I do think it'll be Enzo Fernandez while Cole Palmer is out. He's still a very, very good option. And also, as we know, his ownership is a lot higher. Do you really want to take on João Pedro's 60% ownership? It is a big call. But for now, I'm still going to say João Pedro is the best forward to buy. So João Pedro is our winner. He is the best forward to buy. And I'll be honest, this was a very, very tough call. I think, like I said before, after the semi-final stage, any of those 4 forwards, if you are looking to buy them in Gameweek 8, are very, very solid options. But anyway, guys, João Pedro is our winner for now. Make sure you guys like the video and subscribe to the channel. And we will be back soon.